Today we're joined by Andy Logan, founder of Grateful Guitars Foundation and steward of some of the most iconic instruments ever played by Jerry Garcia and others. We'll dig into how these historic guitars are preserved, shared, and kept alive on modern stages. Let's jump in.
Awesome.
Andy, right, welcome. How are we doing?
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited. T has talked about this since you two met like a year ago. You gave him the card, and the other day T's like, "You're the one who gets people to come on." So I reached out, and here we are. And
I was like, "Kev, reach out to him." Like, he didn't answer my email when I sent it to him a while ago. I was like, "You're good at hounding people. Get him on here. I want to talk to him. I've been dying to have you."
Well, I'm sorry for any delays. One of the challenges of this, as I'm sure you guys have learned, it's like drinking from a fire hose. I mean, there's so much interest and excitement that you find yourself running a million different directions all at the same time. And as we all know, there's shows happening, so we must do our duty on seeing the live music on top of all the work that goes behind the scenes. So,
I'm sure it gets a little overwhelming at times, but thank you very much for making the time for us. It's awesome to finally have you here.
You're welcome. And it was a pleasure. People have asked me about, Alligator at a show like Taper's Choice, and Dave Harrington said to me after, we didn't play a Dead song, is that all right? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I really think that, for us to stay alive, right, we have to honor the past, but we have to move forward too. And I said to him, I feel like Jerry was sitting in the corner smiling like that. That's what I believe to be true. I don't think he would want it to be stagnant. I don't think it would be like, oh, you didn't play, Touch of Grey, so I'm mad or whatever. No, I'm sure that he was digging the jamming because that's really what it was all about. And, to me, the one of the fun things of loaning Alligator out is capturing maybe some fans who are fans of whatever band they're seeing that night, like hardcore. And of course they know of Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead, but they don't maybe really know, or a lot of people have, as I'm sure you've run into, some people have very strong biases, right? So if they see something like Alligator getting played and they see maybe their hero like Dave Harrington or Adam Granduciel from War on Drugs, I'm thinking of another band that maybe is out of the box in some way, they might go, you know what? I heard him, tonight, and it seemed like he was really touched. I think I'm going to go check out that Europe 72 thing everyone's talking about, and so if we grow our following that way, then I feel like job done,
Dave might not have played a Dead song that night, but he did tease a couple, and it definitely changed the sound of their playing. So all those songs sounded very unique that night because of that instrument. Like, it was very cool. And personally, I mean, it was a highlight of my life, getting to strap that thing on stage and just strum a little and touch it and feel the energy coming off of it. And then to watch Dave shred it was just unreal.
Thank you again. We're grateful for Grateful Guitar. Dave, hold that thing up in the air. If you please. Dave Harrington on the electric guitar. Grateful Guitar is bringing us the Alligator to play for you tonight. Thank you so much for being here.
And getting to talk to you, actually, which is, I know we probably could have waited, but I wanted to bring this up really quick and we can kind of get into it. But talking to you even that night is what really excited me and astounded me about you personally, was just your attitude towards it and your feeling of, well, yeah, I have this. I want it to be played. Like, there's still life in this instrument. I don't want to hang it on my wall or just show it to random people that come to my house. I want not just the musicians to get to play it and kick the cobwebs off it and experience. I want the audience to experience hearing it and seeing it and having those moments too. And sat there, and as soon as I got done and talked to Kevin, I was like, he gets it. Like, this guy totally understands like what it means to have this relic or relics, I guess you could say.
Well,
And
we refer to somebody else having some guitars and they sit in glass in an office and one person gets to see it, which is
and
I could never do that. Truly, I think I may have told you that it would literally hurt me physically. I can't imagine. I couldn't do it. The first guitar that was sort of connected to this whole thing was the Kripe Saturn, as it's known, but it's known by Kripe as a tribute. It was finished as a tribute to Jerry. What we learned about Steve Kripe is all of the guitars he made about 24, were going to be made for his hero. And he was a woodworker and incredible builder of wood things, like in yachts and stuff, but hadn't made guitars, right? And so, but when you look at any Kripe in your hands, you're like, oh my God, this thing is just unbelievable. The amount of wood he's got glued together and inlays and just the special stuff that's going on all of them, blows your mind. But basically, he was hoping that someday maybe Jerry would check out one of his pieces, and he was doing it all off of watching the VHS Dead Ahead of Tiger. And there was no internet and specs and all the stuff that's out there today, templates or what have you.
Didn't Gary Bauer take Lightning Bolt and redo it to put the electronics in? Isn't that what the story is with that?
Yeah, Gary Bauer, yeah. And so he was Jerry's he was Jerry's last tech, and actually Lightning Bolt was with him when Jerry passed. It was getting worked on.
Right, because Rosebud came back. And Tiger
exactly.
For the last show was Rosebud and Tiger, which is kind of crazy fitting, full circle thing,
Yeah, Rosebud got a lot more play than people are aware. If you look back at, people think, oh, the Kripe shows up in '93, and then we all want to make it easy, like, oh, that's it, that's all it was. But no, actually, there was a lot of Rosebud in the '90s. Obviously, it came in '90, spring '90. It was actually New Year's '89. I was lucky. That was the only
New Year's
runs, '89 and '91. But '89 was way more celebratory because the '91 New Year's was after Bill Graham had died, and it was a little heavy. That one, they were showing all of these shots on the behind the band of all the people that had passed, right, including Brent and Bill Graham, and so it wasn't surprising to us that was the last Grateful Dead New Year's, was because that was Bill Graham's baby, and they didn't do that again until iterations of the Dead later on came back and did them. But anyway, that Kripe guitar, before I bought it, I bought it from Adam Palau, who was Kripe's would-be apprentice before Kripe sadly died a year after Jerry. He was killed in a fireworks explosion because that was his hobby. That's why he had the firework on the truss rod cover. Anyway, but I was like, I'm really interested in it, but if I get this, it will be played, because I believe it was made to be for Jerry. It was made to be played, and so I will not own this and put it on my wall. It has to go to shows. It has to be out there. And I don't know, I just always have been a big fan. Once I've understood it, first I was afraid of it, but once I understood it, of the Grateful Dead ethos, right? The idea, the trope of doing a solid for someone who has passed on, right? And that felt like such a neat experience to kind of be a part of. Hey, I know Kripe wanted that guitar on the Warfield stage or the Fillmore, and thanks to a lot of wonderful players, it has been there, and so it feels like that I got dotted, right? And I made sure Adam was cool with it, which he totally was. Like, yeah, that sounds awesome. It should be. That's great. But I know I've had people yell at me, and people online say things like, what are you doing? Those should be white gloved, or you're ruining the value of them by having them played. Obviously, I don't give a shit about any of that.
Well, why? Because if they're played, you have to make modifications, like refretting a guitar or something. Is that what's?
Maybe, or it just puts fingerprints on it. It damages it. It's not preserving it. and so
Just
that
puts fingerprints on it.
yeah, I mean, I've never understood the GI Joe like in the packaging thing. Like, I mean,
Don't open it. Don't ever don't unwrap it. Keep
yeah,
it boxed up.
I don't get it.
I was
Don't
going to
play
ask
with
you
it.
how many people, or how often do you hear people on the flip side, like a 180 from how I feel about this, like with people that would be completely like, oh my God, you're ruining it or you're destroying. First of all, it's yours. So I don't feel like how they could say like you're ruining the value. If it's you, if you bought it, you can ruin, like you're the one that would have to sell it eventually or whatever. So it's you that would be doing it. But I'm curious, do you run into a lot of people who are anti you doing that?
I mean, we all know we love our dead scene, right? And I'm sure you guys have had it happen where you posted something and you're doing
Oh
it out
yeah.
of the kindness of your heart and you just love it and the passion, and then there's someone going to tell you something, right? So I can't say that it hasn't happened often. You know, thankfully it's a small percentage, right? When you look at the whole, but it is there, and it truly, I don't feel like it's mine, or my family's. It is always Jerry's guitar, and we are just passing through as he sang, and that's one of the things about like every Grateful guitar we give away, like Jeff Mattson's Woolly Mammoth as an idea from Scarlet Fire Guitars out of Dallas from Leo Elliott, is just stunningly beautiful. I mean, it is a tiger with a woolly mammoth on it. It's got a Pleistocene scene inlay on the back that if you haven't seen, I can send you a photo, but it's just unbelievable. Sometimes I wish fans could always see, the backs of these things because they're just often as beautiful, if not more. But really, one thing that I try to remind the players that these are not even theirs. You know what I mean? Like, ideally, there'll be hundreds of years of life of these guitars. There should be. They're built to last, right? Truly. And so, yes, Mattson has it now, and we'll kick ass on it for a long time. And then who knows where it will go? And that's for every one of these instruments. Every jam band we see that has a cool guitar like that, ideally, if they're still playing Strads hundreds of years later, right? These should be lasting hundreds
Like
of
the
years. Like
violins. Who were those? What's that guy? Stravinsky? Who's the
Stradivarius.
violin
That's what I'm
guy?
saying. Yeah, and that Kevin, it's interesting you say that, because that was one of the things too, that when I was buying the Cripe, that was a part of my thinking, because I had been at a string quartet in Portola Valley. I live in Woodside, which is not far from Palo Alto, here in the Bay, and I spoke to the person who was playing the Strad, and I knew they were like $1 million violin or whatever, and it was just a thrill, to hear it and see it. And it didn't belong to that player. It was on loan. There was a patron of the arts who, had it out in that person's hands. But it struck me that if that violin, right, which is played in countless string quartets, right? I mean, it just boggles the mind to think about how many rooms were like what we experienced, like, I don't know, it was like an hour-long set or whatever, and how many times over hundreds of years had this happened. And, I don't know about you guys, but classical music kind of makes me cry almost. Like, there's just something really old in it that it's like when Bobby with the Wolfpack does, when he brings strings in. Have you seen, like, the beginning of the intro to Weather Report when they start? I mean, wow. Like, that literally, I could cry right now just thinking about it. It's so beautiful and so amazing, and it just cuts right to your heart and your cells, and there's something in all of us, I think, that connects to it. And just as an aside, I think the Grateful Dead tap into a lot of that old stuff, with their iconography, with their way, their ethos, their vibe, the way they did everything differently. There's just something very old feeling and old magic about the Dead.
I laugh about Terrapin Station being done with the strings. They worked out and everybody complained about the album. What is Keith Olsen doing? Turns out it was pretty cool 50 years later.
Yeah, it really was. And we got to see Bobby and the Stanford Symphony do it at the Frost a couple, I can't even remember, it's all molding in, but maybe it was 2 falls ago or whatever it was. And it was so fun to see like that live, right? Because I always dug it. When I was getting into the band in the mid-'80s, I went to boarding school back east and had a lot of Deadheads around me, and a lot of the tapes were like 84, 85, 86. And so I knew like Touch of Grey was already out there a long time before it, like everyone, became like a
Right.
hit or whatever. But I remember, being told, okay, the albums are real different, check them out, but they're really different, not going to be like what the band is when you go see a show. But I really dug them. I mean, it was, Pride of Cucamonga or whatever. I remember listening to all those things being like, this is cool. Like, it's not a Dead show. It was very clearly different than the bootlegs. But yeah, I thought it was like also interesting. It was an additional thing. But just real quick, going back to the thing about the Strat, it just struck me as crazy that like Rosebud has been at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for a long time, right? And there's a feeling that you can't, that some of these things must live behind glass, right? And they're only from like the 60s or the 70s. And you're like, wait, how can a violin that's hundreds of years old still be out there getting played? And, in what one would think is a more conservative vibe, right?
Absolutely.
Classical music, right? Where they'd be like, don't you do that, right? But no, they're sharing them and they're out there. And here we are, all rock and roll people who are like white gloving, Hendrix's guitar, whoever's it is, and no, it can never be, don't touch those strings. They were last played by Jimmy or whatever. It's insane. And, I know as far as like, guitar strings, people have asked me like, are those original? Like, absolutely not. Parrish told me that every time Tiger left the stage, the first thing he did was restring it. So, I know when I saw Tiger in 2017 and was told those are the strings, and, I'm sure that probably Jerry did touch them or whatever. They went in the case or whatever before he passed, different things. But, they are tools. And I definitely think that Jerry was a practical man and saw these things in the right perspective. And I do not think that he would have wanted it to be that way. I think he probably would have laughed at a lot of that kind of vibe. And
agree. Yeah.
I've had.
I mean,
I've
he
had
forever
players-
was replacing the pickups. He thought that magnetism wore down the pickups. He was constantly replacing them. I mean, he knew
Yes.
that the guitar wasn't its original parts.
Exactly. Yeah. And Brower has told me that he that was his thing, that he thought you had to, change them out. So you're totally correct. And, but I've had players who have said, oh, I really want to play it. Can you come? And then I bring it. And then all of a sudden, we're before the show and they're starting to get nervous and they're like, oh, I don't know if I should. And I'm always like, you have a job. So it's your
Open
job.
the portal.
You don't have to do this. I mean, you could put it behind you. You could play it for just the encore, if you want, if you only want to kind of take a leap on one. But I definitely do not think that you need to worry about like Jerry, because I really truly believe that he would see it as a tool and say, have at it. Like this thing is fun. Give it a whirl, And I mean, I will say that I was surprised how great it sounded. Right. I knew, when I got them from the auction, that they were historic and cool. And I was really looking forward to finding out what Alligator was. That was one of the things I was really excited about. And so the auction happened. A friend of mine had died and I was back east for his service. So I couldn't go to the auction itself. I had planned to attend. And I really thought I had a shot at the Martin. I did not think I had a shot at Gator. I thought Gator was going to go for $1 million plus, and it was going to be crazy. And it is a guitar at the end of the day, and I was like, that's insane. That's crazy. I'm just not going to do that. So in my mind, the guitar was worth $400,000 because there was a while that the Travis Bean was for sale. There were a few Travis Beans. It was the 77 one was for sale for like 10 years at $250. So I'm like, okay, Travis Bean, super cool. But Gator is Gator, so it's probably at least worth $400. And I kind of, in my mind, that was where I set the market, because the market had been looking at that bean for 10 years at $250 and no one moved. So to me, that was sort of a marker. I realize it's worth more now. But when that happened, I was participating over the phone, and I think I maybe said 380, and then someone else said 400. And then this British guy who I was on the phone with at Bonhams was like, well, it's 420 to you. And I love weed, and 420 was a big part of my life in college. We were some of the early adopters of the notion of 420, and we used to celebrate April 20th and those things back in. Started after I was living here in 90, so in 91 and 92, my junior and senior year in college. And so I said, well, I can't turn down 420. Thinking that it's going to just blow by that, this is just nothing. And then everyone started chuckling and it was quiet and I could hear over the phone, people laughing because I think they were grasping that this was going to happen at 420. And then he said, you got it. And I of course, cried and I was like, can't believe this. But I went down to pick it up. The only time I've ever gone to LA and back in one day. Drove, my family was like, you're crazy. And my kids were younger at the time, so I didn't have any helpers. It was just me. And it was extremely scary driving home because I did have to use the bathroom. And so I don't know how well you know the drive from NorCal to SoCal, but I-5 is the way you do it. And it's about from here to LA. If you're lucky, you can do it in, if you drive the way I can drive sometimes, 5.5 or 6 hours. And so it was a long day, but the way back, I got to go to the bathroom and I'm not going to make it. Right. So I stopped at Laval Road, which is a place after the Grapevine, going northbound for that. And I knew, because I've done this drive a lot because my son's gone to college down there, and I've also seen a lot of live music down there, where the stops are and where to go. And there's a mini mart that's a part of Laval Road at the Chevron. And there's a parking space literally right in front of the double glass doors. So I was like, okay, I'm going to back the SUV right up to that door. And I'm going to, make sure it's locked 20 times. And then I'm going to run into the bathroom and pee as fast as a human can pee, which I did. And no, I did not wash my hands. I have hand sanitizer in the car. And I ran back to the thing, assuming it'd be very bold to attempt a smash and grab right where people are going in and out of that door.
Right at that time, too. I would have had, did you hide it? Did you put some stuff over it? And
Oh, yeah. I put blankets over it, over that in the Martin.
I'm surprised you didn't take it in with you. I probably would have taken it in with me and
now I probably would. I think I was still maybe learning the game, and I should have probably done that. But anyway, the next day I brought the Alligator down to Griffin Strings, which is a famous guitar shop in Palo Alto. I highly recommend people visit if they're out here. All the members of the Dead have been in the doors of Griffin Strings before. I know firsthand that Jerry, Bobby, and Phil have, so I suspect all of them have. But it's a legendary shop and a lot of Dead connections in there, a lot of Deadheads. And I wanted to know what it was because many people had said it was a 57 neck on a 63 body. And the only way to know is to crack it open. And most people who were buying a guitar like that, like I was saying before, would white glove it and they would never do that to it. But I've done this stuff now since 2013 as far as loaning gear to bands and gifting guitars to players. So I've done a lot of setups myself and been around for them. And I've seen Strats be unscrewed and taken apart. And so I knew it was possible and it shouldn't be a big deal, right? But of course, it's a little trepidation as he's like, unscrewing Gator and like, you sure want me to do this? Because, at first it was stuck, it took a little bit of a to knock the neck, off. But I also know from working with luthiers, from doing Grateful Guitars and all this stuff, that luthiers are geniuses. I mean, they are magicians with wood. So if you have something made of wood and you're a friend with a luthier, you're in very good hands, and they're going to fix it so well that you'll never even know that there was anything wrong. So I truly was confident it was going to be okay. And when Brian Michael, the head luthier and repairman at Griffin, opened it up, there it was on the inside of the neck, TG 355, and on the body 255. And so TG is Tadeo Gomez, and that's who shaped like Clapton's famous necks and was the neck shaper at the time back in 55, 54 through 57, whatever it was, of all those famous Strats. And there was a laugh in the room because everyone was like, well, we just made it worth 20 more grand because it's a 55 Strat, which because no one knew, right? And so we learned it's actually a 55 through and through. and that was really exciting. Just for what it's worth, if you look at the Fender website, and you looking at the ones that they reissued, it says that they opened it up and saw that. Sadly, that's not accurate. And I actually told them that story, and they were on the edge of their seat, hearing it, and it was to my chagrin reading
No,
that.
originally when he got Alligator, sorry, oh my God, that's edited. Graham Nash gave it to him is the backstory of it.
Yes.
But they called it, was it Alembic? Is that the guys who he took it to and they kept tinkering with it? Because I've heard it that it was referred to as the Frankenstein guitar.
Yes. Oh, yeah, because they did. So Frank Fuller and Rick Turner, while at Alembic, modded the heck out of it. And that's another thing with Grateful Dead gear. If anyone ever is told this was something owned by the Grateful Dead, if it may have been, it's possible that they owned it and now they gave it to so and so, and now that person's selling it on eBay or whatever it is. But the best way to know is modifications. They modded everything. I mean, every piece of gear I've ever seen has different screws on it, different jacks. They love banana plugs. I mean, just all these different. They modded it. They wanted it to be just exactly perfect. And so, if you see something that someone tells you is Grateful Dead owned, and it looks really beat up, buy it, because it means it was authentic. And that proved true. Like in the next auction that followed, the big one where Bobby sold a bunch of his guitars. There was a couple of Gray Alvarez's in that auction, and I did a ton of research before. And the internet is an amazing tool for this too, right? And Deadbase, and we, as Deadheads, we're lucky because our following is so sentimental. So there's so much information out there. But there were two Gray Alvarez acoustics in that auction, and one said stage played Bob Weir, Gray Alvarez, and another one, like 3 down, was Gray Alvarez, Bob Weir, Gray Alvarez. And I'm looking at the one that says stage played, and I know Bobby only played modulus neck guitars at the time, including his acoustics. So they have acoustics that literally have a modulus carbon fiber neck attached to an acoustic guitar. And the guitar that said stage played had a truss rod cover on it, which modulus necks don't have truss rods. So I'm like, that probably, it was Bobby's, I'm sure, but it wasn't the one, right? The one that I saw at Shoreline, right? And the one a couple down that's beat to hell is the one. And so yeah, and I could see,
You
like,
just keep that quiet, and you keep that quiet so you can low bid when the one that is the real one.
So I have buddies who also collect, and I talk about that stuff with those guys, but I definitely did not tell the whole world, that was actually the one. In part because I know it's already been on stage several times. I wish people would buy these things and share them, because I really meant what I said as we were in the pre-call, that the fans we're just as much a part of this as the band. And every human is of anything that's famous at all. Famous people are very talented, and they are human beings. And we are, we all are talented in our own way, and we are there, watching these amazing acts and fans of these things. So we all play a role in these things. And thusly, I truly believe that any Deadhead who is sober and can hold something, not drop it, has a right to hold Alligator and take a photo with it or whatever, because we're all part of that, and even though I was only 2 in 72, I'm still a part of the soup. One analogy I like to use with a Grateful Dead fan is like a bar of soap. I don't know if you've ever seen it where soaps can get connected to other bars of soaps to make a bigger new bar of soap. But that's sort of the analogy in my mind, is like when I was 18 at Hartford Civic Center, just turned 18, April 3rd, 88, and then my second show was at Worcester, Mass, a week later. I saw Deadheads looking at me and laughing, like, look at that little guy. He looks like he's 12, and I did. I looked really young, as I still look young, but whatever. And so, but that's what this is, right? I was a new fresh bar of soap in this whole big glued together, multicolored tie-dye soap bar, right? And we need that, right? And so because it enlivens the whole thing. And so, that's one reason I'm so stoked to bring it to Taper's Choice, or that John Mayer is doing what he's doing. He has brought so many young fans to our scene, and I have huge respect for them. And I know I was told, oh, you came after Touch of Grey, you're a touch head, or it all was over in 73, or it was over in 77. Or you hear all these different things. I'm sure we've all met the fans who say, I haven't been to anything Grateful Dead live since Jerry died because it's a sin. It ended with Jerry. And I just think that's so sad because, I really don't believe that would have been how Jerry felt, right? And the notion of the music plays the band, right? That line in Music Never Stopped. The reason that was the subtitle that we used for that CD and also, for that doc project, I think it's so important is because it is the music, right? The music is getting passed down. So many of the Dead songs are traditional pieces that weren't theirs either, right? And so, we are dancing to I Know You Rider, this old song, and it just train keeps on a-rolling. And it's really fun to see new bands take fresh takes on this stuff and as the Garcia family said, continuing the conversation, birth a Grateful Drag. I mean, how freaking cool, and I've got fan buddies who have said, oh, I don't know, I feel a little uncomfortable. I've been, and it's amazing, and it's so exciting and cool. And one of the things that's so neat is all of a sudden, you forget what the spectacle of it, and you're watching these unbelievably skilled Nashville players with vocals from Nashville and skills from Nashville throw down on this Grateful Dead catalog in such an amazing way. And it's a Dead show because it's weird and different. And that's the part that I feel like, all of us, in our age group, we have to continue to pass down that there are no rules. That's one of the rules is there are no rules, right? And so, because sometimes, working on these shows and doing different things, I'll hear younger people be like, well, we can't end the set on that. It's got to be Deal or whatever. And I'm like, dudes, you can do whatever you want, as long as it's exciting.
And be different and be new.
We always critique.
And right. I think that's something, and Trey always says that too. He always talks about that in things. That's like, don't do what we've done. Don't copy us. Go do your own thing. Like, you can be inspired by us or you can take things from us, but go be you. Go create your own with this as a blueprint.
Exactly.
You can take things from it, but go do it. And I think it's so interesting too, that you were saying, we're okay with other bands covering them and playing their songs, and especially when some random pop band or somebody covers a Dead song, you're like, holy crap, I never expected them to play that. But at the same time, I feel like that also is true with the instruments. Like, why not play these instruments too? Like, they're there for that same reason. Why would people be upset that you're letting that be used when it's all part of the same story? It's all part of the same book. Like, get it all out there. Let
exactly.
next generations feel and hear it.
Yeah, hearing Foolish Heart on Alligator was one of my favorite songs I've ever heard on it, right? And I'm sure some people out there are like, that's a sin, whatever, right? But, it's a great tool, and it sounded great on, Tennessee Jed, what it did originally, and it thusly, not surprisingly, is going to sound kick-ass on Foolish Heart, and then to be there in the audience along with all the fans the first time it's ever done that, right? Because every song Dave played that night was the first ever of that on Alligator.
That's what I was gonna say, right? Exactly. And all those songs are very unique because of that and playing that. So I feel like it's one of those things where I feel you should take away from that the uniqueness and the coolness of that experience and seeing it doing something maybe it wasn't supposed to do or was built to do, but it is doing it now. And 30 years later, 40 years later, how epic is that? I mean, that's just such a cool thing, I think.
Yeah, it's so fun. And like I was saying, I knew they were historical and cool, and I knew that they would be played. I mean, I knew we could get them. Like, I was in touch with Rick Turner, and Rick had already been in touch with Bonhams. They had worked on making the guitar kind of work again a little bit, like on the wiring, to make sure that the guitar could make sounds. So he was very excited to bring it back to its former glory. And that's, it couldn't be exactly the way it was in Europe because the parts have changed, but basically get it back into the heyday of 72, 73. And that's what he did. And he did it with helpers. Mike Wald from Wald Electronics supplied an old vintage Stratocaster, which was amazing. And those top hat knobs, those old Alembic top hat knobs that you see in the Jerry photo from like 73 that Rosie McGee shot. But it was still surprising how freaking good it sounds. Like it just cuts through the room in such a unique way, and tonally it's phenomenal. I mean, Steve Kimmock has said to me, he's like, I think that's the best sounding Stratocaster in the world, which from him, I will never forget, because he is extremely knowledgeable and talented, and has played many, many instruments and is very picky. And so that's very high praise coming from someone who really, really knows. But I shouldn't have been surprised that and the Martin sound so unbelievably amazing, because there are heroes, and of course they would, right? I mean, I'm sure every one of them, whether it be, I've heard the Wolf and played, and Tiger, and, the Beans, whatever it is, they all sound great because those were the tools of a master at his craft, right? And he wanted to communicate something. He wanted you to feel the wistful feelings of Stella Blue, the way, I think it felt, the way it came through. I never got to meet Jerry. The closest was at Warfield shows. If you ran around the back during like midnight moonlight, you could catch him coming out the back door. And so one night I did that with maybe like 3 or 4 other heads. And he got into a white van, and he had his brown leather jacket, and he rode shotgun. He wasn't like big timing it in the back or whatever. He got right there with the driver, and he, Jer, gave us a nice wave, and then they drove off, and it was very sweet. But yeah, I mean, I do feel like, and I've been a psychotherapist. I was in high tech at first, and my first part of my career, and then I went back to school and became a psychotherapist for a little over 20 years. And then now I'm just doing Grateful Guitars and some production work that we do. But I definitely, oh yeah, but I definitely feel like that I knew I had a sense of Jerry's heart, you know what I mean? Like his sadness, like all of it, the joy when he'd be playing "Let the Good Times Roll" and bobbing and excited for the beginning of the show that's about to unfold, and then those reflective moments where you're like, wow, there's a sadness. I mean, I can feel it, and of course we've all, oh yeah, and we've all seen him interviewed, and I tell people who aren't into the Dead, like, because obviously you get the stigma, right? I mean, your channel, Wook Plus, right? Wookiees, right? You hear that stigma and that thing. And I say, go, that's cool. Go watch the man talk. Just Google Jerry Garcia interview. I don't care what comes up. It doesn't matter. I've never seen a bad one. They're all amazing. They're really inspiring. They're interesting. He's so quick-witted and fascinating. So first, you're going to love the way he thinks and how egalitarian he is, and just his ethos is so incredible and evolved. And then I always hope people will check out a cover, because that's really a great way to get into any band, right? If you see Fish play Loving Cup or whatever it is, I mean, any band. And I remember having a friend when I worked in high tech who was a huge Beatles fan, and he was like, the Dead? He was like, you're going to Cal Expo? What are you doing, man? Good grief, isn't the 60s over? And anyway, so at one point I was driving to a trade show with him, and I knew I had him, in the car, right? So I popped on the Dear Prudence, the live Jerry band Dear Prudence, and he's a big Beatles fan, so he's like, I'm watching him bobbing and into it. And then he's like, man, this is awesome. I'm like, who is this? And I'm like, this is Jerry Garcia. It's just so fun, and that's the thing, right? I think most people, with probably most bands, most popular things, it's that you're just not giving it a chance, right? I mean, you kind of decided you don't like it because everyone else loves it, or some group of people love it who you don't like, and really you just need to be open-minded and exposed to it, and probably there's going to be parts of it that you dig too.
I think to that point, it's very impressive that, because I mean, I feel like you get that a lot with Fish these days. People are like, Fish, oh, a jam band, oh, it's 20-minute jams. Whereas you don't get that as much anymore with the Grateful Dead or Dead and Co. Because I feel like they've managed to break through that barrier almost. And it's almost like, you've gone to like almost a third or fourth generation of Deadhead families now, who are like, oh, it's not just their kids, it's like their kids, like who are seeing Dead and Company now. And so there's this great like genealogy through it to that. And so like the barrier's kind of down. So it's, I mean, sure, like you were saying earlier, you get people who are the purists that are like, oh, fuck that, I don't want to hear that. Like, you died with Jerry, or they're just all money grabs now, whatever. But when you get through that and realize they're actually still bringing this music to the masses and finding relevance and finding new generations to play to, you kind of understand that more, and you get a little bit more of a, wow, this is pretty unique and very cool. And that kind of jam band barrier isn't quite, I mean, people are arguing over whether or not Sturgill Simpson is a jam band, right? Because he said he wasn't. So people are all up in arms over that. Whereas with the Dead, you don't really have that argument anymore. You don't really have that stigma anymore of like, oh, you're a Deadhead. It kind of is like broken down and kind of dissolved.
Totally. Yeah, it is. And so my sons, obviously I wanted them to be Deadheads, right? I mean, what dad wouldn't want their kids to be Deadheads? So, and as a therapist, in psychology, you think a lot about, okay, how do you do this, right? How can I pull this off, right? And so what I came up with was the line, "You'll figure it out." And so whenever they were getting sick of it, like, "Dad, the Dead again," when they were like 12 and 13, and I just skipped the track, I'd be like, "Oh, you'll figure it out." Skip the track, go to, the Stones or Bruce or whoever it was, reggae, whatever we're listening to. And I would tell them that. I'd say, you're going to learn things from our house, but one of the things you're definitely going to learn is rock and roll. You're going to be well-schooled. Like when David Bowie died, I was so proud of both my sons because they were asking at their dances that weekend to have David Bowie played. And a bunch of their friends didn't even know who David Bowie was. And that's a crime, sorry, but I think it is.
That's just bad parenting. That's just bad. That's bad parenting.
That is
right. Right. So, but whenever it got to the jammy stuff, I really did mean that though too, because I do think it takes a little bit of experience in life. And, I mean, you could say psychedelics too, marijuana being a psychedelic or whatever, maybe, as a part of that, but just living a little to start to see that as much as I adore Pink Floyd, and we got to see Gilmore, I never had seen him until that last tour he did when I went down to the Hollywood Bowl. But I love Pink Floyd and I love all their albums. But, one of the wonderful things about being a Deadhead is I am 55. I've listened to so much of their music, and there are hundreds of Eyes of the Worlds I've never heard, ever. And they're ones I'm going to probably pass away never having heard. Still, nuggets, we still don't know each other, right? And all these different iterations. And how exciting is that? And I think as you age, you start to go, you know what, Dark Side of the Moon, amazing. But I have heard it like hundreds of times. So it's really fun to be like, oh, wow, did you see what Pigpen just did right there? Or did you see what Bobby was doing on that lick right there? Oh, that was so cool. And so there's so much to mine, so much goodness. And then once you kind of do that math, then when you go see Steely Dead, right, who is one of the bands that I adore, or so many of these bands I adore, but they do a lot of fresh things. You hear things you've never heard. And they get that same feeling of excitement. And I'm watching my sons who now are Deadheads, and they're wearing Dead shirts, and they're having fun because they'll wear them at a restaurant, and the waiter will go, "Hey, that's a cool shirt," and they're like, "Oh," and they get all excited, so they get the iconography, they get all the fun of it, and they're really getting the jam parts and the improvisation and the groove, right? And that's a part of it that I think is really universal, going to like a Mickey Hart theme, there's something about a groove. I really think Jerry loved reggae, and I kind of like, if I were to give jam bands advice, it would be like, sit in some of those songs longer. You watch, like Fire in the Mountain's one of my favorite songs. Anyone who jams with me, partly because I'm not a great player, but I can play a little. I would love a 2-chord special. and fire is that. But I used to love it when Jerry would be playing, fire would start, and he sometimes would just on
Meander.
that riff, just sitting there on that riff, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, and he's just digging it. And there's no rush, right? And so many times I'll see a dead band where the song goes right into that you'll hear the bass riff, and then right away, doing the Jerry thing. And it's like, and it's a part of the song, and it's all gonna be different. That's okay. And again, there are no rules, but there is something about taking your time and sitting in a groove that is so compelling. And I love reggae music, and I feel like in the Bay Area we have a lot of awesome music, but there's one thing I wish we had more of, was more reggae. And I don't know if you guys got to see like the Marley Brothers tour. Like, oh my God, I got to see them at Concord Pavilion. It's so amazing. But I feel like that is a universal idea. And my sons were both up here recently with some friends from college who are not deadheads. The college buddies were not raised the way I raised my son, so they don't know classic rock and David Bowie and things. But they were really open, and they were interested, and I showed them, the guitars and different things, and they wanted to show me what they're into. And this is EDM. And so they're showing me that they'd just seen this guy Fisher and how exciting it was, and they're showing me the clip of it. And, obviously part of me is screaming like, what the hell is this? There's no band. I'm watching a guy who all he's doing is going like this and like this, and he's doing something, but he's not playing a guitar, right? But, I'm trying to remember my teachings as a deadhead of being open and accepting and trying to appreciate, there's something here, right? Look at all these people going crazy, and the place is fucking packed, and everyone's going crazy for every drop and every, thing. And what we all kind of agreed on is it's that groove. It's that international language or whatever of a groove, or Mickey would say the heartbeat, right? Where we're all into that, and then we wait, and we can't wait for that moment where it's going to drop, and then we're all going to go crazy when it does, and it's so exciting and fun. And how could we ever judge that, right? And judge fun. And one of the things that was really, really cool and exciting was that they all said that the audience at going to these festivals and these EDM shows, that the audience is like what they are hearing me describe a dead show is. They're all really sensitive, kind-hearted people, welcoming, and I do think this is an interesting part on psychedelics. Psychedelics are a big part of that scene. So I think this is also not only on grooves, is it teaching us about grooves, but I think it's also teaching us about the magic of psychedelics, that there's something really good for humans to open your mind, with psychedelics. And I'm not trying to be a pusher here or whatever. And if someone just wants to smoke weed or whatever, because I do view it as a psychedelic, anything that gets you out of your own ego and helps you see outside yourself is a healthy thing. And I think that probably for that whole following, I know there's a lot of Molly and different things, they probably have all had those same thoughts that we've had at shows where you're listening to your show and you're there with your buddies, and then maybe there's this long jam, and maybe it's birdsong where it's getting weird, and you start thinking about, God, that comment I made to my dad a couple days ago, yeah, whatever, my mom, my coach, whatever, some memory, something. And then you think about it from a different perspective. Like, I know I was pissed, but I bet they were really just trying to help me in their own way. And what's wonderful as a therapist and someone who supports psychedelic-assisted therapy, I'm not a practitioner of it, but I support it for this reason, is if you have a positive moment of reflection during broke down or whatever it is, some moment of a dead song or a bird song, a jam, you have a new memory to reintegrate, right? So you had the memory where your mom said something that hurt your feelings, or the coach, but now you're remembering it also with this new association of the bird song at Terrapin Crossroads I'm listening to. And you know what? I kind of think that maybe he was just trying to help me and motivate me. And even though it was kind of fucked up the way he did it, it really was coming from a good place. Now I've got a positive thing to associate what I used to only maybe see as negative. And so the memory gets reintegrated with a new positive twist. And I do believe that's probably how psychedelics are helping people overcome, major addictions and traumas, because you're opening your mind up to looking at something in a different way or different light. And so I do think probably the EDM GD scene has a Venn diagram overlap with not only community, but probably the psychedelic aspect is a big, factor there. But it just was really interesting because off the cuff, they're so different, right? Like we cheer when the solo happens or the singing happens or the drumming or whatever, not when someone hits play generally.
But it's a good point. I mean, psychedelics and music go together so well because it integrates into that feeling, and then just the tribalism of finding your tribe and enjoying what you enjoy and being around people in that similar vibe, especially around music. It's very easy because you're all there to celebrate and be a part of that energy that's happening, and it's a very tribal and connected and energy and love and type thing. So I can see how that is unique. And I feel like what you were just saying is on the flip side of that is I've always felt like, because to me, I enjoy all kinds of music, like from everything from rock and roll to some EDM to jet to whatever. And the Dead is like obviously top tier for me, and Fish, and that's my favorites. But I can also go see a Guns N' Roses show with my friends, or I can go see, you know what I mean? But kind of the flip side is that I always can't get my Guns N' Roses friends to come see a Dead show or a Fish show with me. You know, like it's a very weird back and forth in that I'm more open to go see their stuff, but to them, it's like we were just talking about, oh, a jam band? I don't want to go see that, or I don't want to go see that kind of music. You know what I mean? So it's it's a weird back and forth with that too.
You have the right to poke though, right? I mean, because all those buddies, and I have them too, they were dancing to the lyrics of the Grateful Dead, and you're like, you did listen to what Hunter was saying, right? Like, like you have the right to poke at him, because that's what I try to tell myself. Like, don't just write it off because it's new or weird, or you feel like there should be someone on stage playing, like, because if it's popular, there must be a reason, right? There's got to be something that's attracting people to it. And like with Fish, I know a lot of Deadheads who are not Fish people, and I was lucky in that I'm from the Northeast, and so I got to see Fish at the Cap before it was renovated the first time in 1990. And I went to St. Lawrence University, and about the only cool thing that school ever did when I was there was hire Fish for our graduation in '92, which was amazing, and just a really fun party and a great time. And then I saw them again at the Warfield in '93, and that was really wild because all of a sudden they were really like, whoa, this is like a different gear. Like they're really popular. And then a couple years later, they're playing MSG, and it's like, whoa, like they were just off to the
Shoreline, and they got Phil coming out with them on a trampoline.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. And I personally, like, as a guitar and music fan, I always felt like in the early times, like Trey would be going where I'd want him to be going, and then he would take a little U-turn, and it was always like, oh man, you were just scratching me where I itched, and then you got weird on me, and I had a buddy who was like, you got to come back. You got to come back to see Fish again. And I went to Shoreline. I can't remember what year it was. If it was 2015 or 16 or whatever it was. It was a Shoreline show. And it was one of the nights that they played like Joy and Free and just all these very positive-y, happy, easily accessible melodies, all songs that I hadn't heard personally, because I knew, Cavern and all the old stuff, Divided Sky, and You Enjoy Myself, all the Runaway Jim, anyway, so it was really, really fun, and it totally got me back into seeing them. Every time they've come now, I've seen them when they've been at Bill Graham, and then I got to see, I went to, we gave a gift to Oteil at Red Rocks in the beginning of July. And so I saw Fish at Folsom Field, and oh my God, was it? I mean, now I am like, they've got me again. Like I am like, wow. Yeah. So I got to see because that, so that night. Yeah, and we gave Oteil that bass, and then Mike Gordon comes out, and there's a bass duel between Mike Gordon and Oteil. Yeah, it was so cool, so amazing, but it was just and I understand people when they critique as far as Barlow and Hunter, right? Like some of the lyrics of Fish are not going to be like if you plant ice, you're going to harvest wind. I mean that is like, wow. That's an amazing phrase, and it's just, you know, so deep, and it's true poetry, and not every Fish song is going to have that feeling. And just because they had an awesome melody, you know, in the 90s or whatever, doesn't mean they're going to just recycle those, you know, maybe their hits like most bands would do, right? Oh, we're only going to play Bouncing Around the Room because it's such a, you know, fun song. Every show you're going to hear Bouncing Around the Room, right? They're not going to do that. And I totally respect that as a Deadhead, not wanting to be bored. You know, if you're the player, you got to get up there every night. You don't want to play, you know, Eyes of the World every night. You want to mix and match, and you want to play it on maybe the first Eyes at Nassau very differently than you're going to play the next time you play it at Deer Creek, right? So I have huge respect for that. But one thing I like to say to the cranky people about Fish is, show me a bad jam. Show me one fucking bad jam. I don't care if you think this song you're listening to, because they always do, you know, the teasers of like one opening of the first set of the second set on YouTube. It's always there, and we always watch it in our house. And sometimes my son and I will look at each other because maybe the song is starting a little bit, you know, maybe chromatic and just sort of, I don't know, just not, it's not like Peggy-O or whatever, right? It's not just like right away, like, oh, what a warm bath I'm slipping into, right? It might be a little weird or a little, you know, kind of atonal, something, you know. And then we're talking about that, and before, you know, we're done, you know, talking about that, the jam has started. And now we're 10 minutes in, and we are fucking loving it. It's so good. Yeah. I mean, and, you know, that's one thing I adore about jam music. And if you think about it, there's so many bands that kind of have that formula. Like I saw a live clip the other night of Reed and the band Strange Folk, and, you know, his band Assembly of Dust. Reed Genauer. Yeah, great guy and just an awesome talent. Yeah, and he if you know their music or not, it doesn't really matter. You could go see Strange Folk or Assembly of Dust, and you would hear songs, and maybe you love them, and you can't wait to, you know, get that song and get the lyrics and study it and love it. But either way, the jam is going to be fresh and amazing and improvised, and it's going to take you somewhere. And we're so lucky, right, for that, you know, because if you don't like the first part, you're going to love the second, you know, and that's truly, like, I really genuinely challenge someone to share me a bad jam, you know, one that wasn't enjoyable. I don't think they exist. And I would say to anybody, you know, go see them. You're going to have a good time. And one of the really fun things about it, and one thing I like taking like my son to, like when he was at the Trey band opener for the last night at Golden Gate Park, and he said to me, you know, Trey was so comfortable in his skin, and he was so smiley, and he made that beautiful sentiment to Jerry, and then he played Mission in the Rain, and I just felt like, oh yeah, and he said, I just felt like probably what you guys felt like when you saw Jerry on stage. And I said, that's so cool you're saying that, because literally when Trey was on stage, I was having that same thought. Like, this is what it used to feel like, because Jerry would come out and the place would just roar, and you felt like you were in the presence of genius and in the coolest room in the world, and that tons of your friends, not that it's about FOMO, but you knew every friend of yours was like dying to be in there with you, you know, and in a way they were in spirit, right? We were all there together. But I was just so glad that at 24, he got that same feeling, right? That there was something really cool and special happening that's very unique and compelling. And that, you know, man, that's fucking awesome.
It's one of those, you know, it's that I used to say it to my buddies every time we're at a Dead show, when we'd be sitting there before, you know, when the energy's really starting to buzz about 10, 15 minutes before they come on stage and you're getting really excited. And I'd always look at my friends, I'd be like, you know what? There's no place on the planet I'd rather be right now than right here and gonna experience what we're about to experience. And it was always that. It just always had that feeling. It just was always that moment.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And always, and it was true. You're like, a beach in Bali, like, nope, like parrot, nope. This is the only place I want to be right now with you guys, with all these people, and about to see.
Yeah, and that electricity in the room, because you didn't know, you know. And some people be like, oh, there were too many off nights, and I get it, especially like maybe 93 on, there were off nights, more than not, and maybe even after Brent died, there were more than not. However, there were kick-ass nights. I mean, 12, 16, 92, I got to see Casey Jones, I mean, there was so much fun and energy still to be had, and
And even the off nights, you can find good things in, and just being there in the crowd and with your crew and the tribe and the whole set. Like, there's always, the energy is still there. There's still moments. Yeah, you can get out and be like, yeah, that show sucked, but you know what? It was still a dead show, and it was still damn good, and it's still had a good time with it.
Yeah, I'm with you. My birthday, I share a birthday with Vince, 221. And of all the Dead members, would that have been my number one? No, I probably wouldn't have chosen that. Although he was a very, very nice man. I've talked to lots of people who played with him before he passed and shared what a nice guy he was. And I bumped into him backstage. I was lucky to Dan Healy's daughter, Ambrosia, was a really nice person. Was very generous with tickets and helped us Deadheads at St. Lawrence. If you wrote "Hi Ambrosia" on your mail order, you would get she'd hook you up with some nice seats if you're going to Deer Creek or somewhere far away that you're a home away from home, if you will. And she had hooked my now wife up and me with some backstage passes, and I got to talk to Vince, and he was super sweet and nice. And I understand "Some in the Rain," not my favorite either. But
great lyric. It's got a great lyric. That lyric is fantastic. I met Vince once at the Poconos at a Relics thing, and we made a shirt that said "Missing Man Formation." There was a Missing Man Formation with planes, and he was like, "That's for me, really?" I mean, he was like amazed that we did that. We were like, "Dude, we love you, man."
Well, they played Golden Road before opening up for Jerry Band on 10/31/90. 92, when Jerry had been ill and come back, and it was wicked because I never thought I'd hear a live version of Golden Road. I mean, like, wow, So yeah, I mean, he was a good person, and I know that people bitched about Brent. I have many friends who are Keith guys who to this day, oh, Brent, he wasn't for me. I'm a Keith guy, So I know that's just the way it is. They're always gonna be people doing that. But 2/21/95, Vince's birthday, that show in Salt Lake City, I wasn't at it. If I could go back in time, I would. I mean, they had a Visions of Johanna, and I always tell people, like, when they're getting crass about like later Dead, I'm like, dude, you and I both know you would spend $5,000 at least for a ticket to that show, to 2/21/95. I would go right now. I would absolutely spend that money. Because, yeah, it wasn't as good as the Spring 90 shows I saw at Cops Coliseum or the Knickerbocker, but it was, even against today, it was fucking awesome. And still, and you can listen to it right now and be like, yeah, I would like to be there right now. I would absolutely be dancing.
Was that the Salt Lake City night? Was that the night that they broke out Salt Lake City?
Yeah, and it was like I said, Visions of Johanna, which I don't know how many times they played, but super rare and just a really well played show. There's So Many Roads, where all of those in '95. I mean, wow, was Jerry prescient? It feels like, because he really poured his heart out in So Many Roads. I mean, I know Standing on the Moon is sort of the one that people think about a lot, about Be With You, but something about those '95 So Many Roads where I just feel like he was singing to all of us,
Yeah. He knew. He knew. I know he knew. He knew.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there was I don't know if you remember, Kevin, reading that article that said that he was like gotten a ride from like a limo driver during Vegas of '95, and I think the guy made a comment about Halloween or New Year's. Maybe it was about New Year's, and then Jerry said, "I don't think I'll make it to Halloween, or I won't see Halloween or something." And so I agree with you. I think he knew this was coming to an end, and certainly every show from like '93 on, and definitely '94 to '95, I would take one good long look at Jer, just in case, that was the last one. And I remember doing it at the last Warfield show I saw in April of '95, like during a Midnight Moonlight. And I remember we went to the second of 3 nights. I went to the first 2 of the Vegas '95 when Dave Matthews opened up, and Oh, awesome. And you might remember there was a really well played for that time Morning Dew. And that was the last Dead song that I saw like with my eyes. We were walking out during the Saturday night because one of the things we learned on the first night was if you didn't have a ride out of there, good luck. Because you were in the middle of nowhere in the desert. And we literally huffed it like through the desert to like a bar that said on the marquee of the bar, "Welcome Deadheads." And we're like, oh, okay, we can come in here. This looks safe. And we walked in that bar and it was not safe. I mean, they looked at us like they wanted to kill us. And we called, yeah, exactly. We called, for a cab from the strip to come get us, and we got out of there. The next night, we arranged a driver to get us, so we were fortunate. That's why we had to leave during Saturday night. We're like, we'll leave. Exactly, country and western, exactly. But one of the things that's funny, just to dot that I, that I just really cracked up about when I went to the Sphere 2 summers ago, was how different, right? I mean, yes, for sure, a little bit of a too much of a good thing, being in the Forever Experience, seeing like $85 t-shirts for sale, and just like, wow, like we've really milked this thing, right? But that's a small price to pay. Feeling the feeling of being welcomed, truly, like welcome Deadheads, like Vegas, I was there in April again. There's the big marble with the steal your face as you're landing. All these people seeing you, oh, you're a Deadhead, welcome, and they're selling weed, and they're selling all the wares. It's like they finally clued in, because back in the 90s, I'm sure you guys remember, like people were doing hard time for.
Yeah, it was a no tolerance state. Like,
right.
Like seeds got you busted, and like you didn't want to have Deadhead stickers on your car because the cops would just pull you over driving into town.
Right, and search you. Yeah, it was scary. I remember in summer '90 when I lived out west. We lived in the city, and we were clueless. Like I grew up going to Martha's Vineyard and spending summer, so the idea of living somewhere for the summer was like a thing. And so, let's live in San Francisco for summer, not really appreciating it's a city. They don't want your summer lame asses here for 3 months, not doing it,
right,
like only contributing to a business for 3 months and then leaving. But anyway,
Jersey Shore.
Yeah, so we drove back, I drove back. I drove back solo. We drove out with some buddies, and a couple had already left, and one was going to stay a little longer, and I had to get back for school, so I drove back solo. And I remember being in Las Vegas or in Nevada on the way back, and I knew all about the rep, right? And it was like 4 a.m. There were no motels or hotels available because it was the weekend. I didn't clock that you can't get one because they gamble and people stay in all the places. So I was just going to keep on trucking, through. And I was on No-Dos and Jolt Soda to get me, through. And I made it all the way from Marin to Cheyenne. I mean, that's a long way in one drive. I made it all the way from Marin to Cheyenne in that drive. But in Nevada, I was stopped at a off I-80, gassing up my VW with dead stickers all over it. And I had an ounce of Kind Bud that we had gotten through the dead scene through our friend Ambrosia and the Healy's. We had been like Ramrod's Ranch to get it. Like it was weed that, from the dead, really good Kind Bud. And I had a bong in the car and all that. And I was like, there was this state trooper, and he was eyeing me, and he was middle of the night. So he's going to pull me over. He's going to question me. He's got nothing else to do. And I had read Malcolm X's autobiography. And in there, there was a story where before he had found religion and everything, they were robbing homes in affluent parts of Boston where he lived. And they had just done that, a car full of wares, and they saw a cop, like in, I don't know where it was, but someplace that's wealthy in the Boston suburbs. And they basically weren't supposed to be there as a car full of African-American guys. And he was so brilliant that he drove his car to the cop and said, "Sir, we're lost. How do we get back to wherever?" And the cop was like, "Of course you're lost. Get the hell out of here. It's 2 roads there, whatever, da da da." And then they went, not knowing the trunk was full of candlesticks and art. Anyway, so I remembered that, and so I drove. I finished pumping, and I drove over to him because he was watching me the whole time. Right there, it was just me and him in this little lot, and I put the window down. And I said, "Sir, how do you get back to I-80?" And I knew it was right there. You know what I mean? And he was like, "You just go out here and you take a right, and then it's your next right." And so, but Nevada was very scary. And
Harsh. Yeah, very harsh. Like it was a scary drive out there because you cut the corner of Utah or like through Utah and then Arizona. And because I'd always come from Colorado, I was driving out from Fort Collins and college and stuff. We did it in 93, 94, 95 to drive out for those shows. And every year you're like, hide it, hide it all. Hide it all. Don't have any of it out. Like, and then drive the speed limit through those states and be careful. Like, it was always very
terrifying. Pennsylvania at that time, when you were driving west, the sign would say 56 miles an hour, $100 fine or whatever. Like, you're like 56. I don't have cruise control. I can't keep it at 55. I might fuck up and go to 56. Right. I mean, what the hell, right? I mean, it was so scary. And I went to Deer Creek 90 Deer Creek bootleg was so good. I don't know if anyone's heard that, but go check out the Looks Like Rain, the Morning Dew, the Terrapin. Like there's one of the nights, I can't remember if it's 7/18/90, but it's unbelievably amazing. And so I was like, I'm going next summer. And so we drove from St. Lawrence to Indiana to go to those shows. And we got searched so horribly at that parking lot. And it basically, we got narked on. I bought about an eighth of weed from a guy, and he must have gotten busted before then or after then. I don't know which. And I was super lucky because I was learning to surf, and so I was into the surfing and things, and I had a bathing suit on. And I had a shirt kind of like this that has this is my morning jacket shirt, but had a pocket like this. T-shirts had these little pockets sometimes. So I rolled a joint and I put it in my pocket, the joint. And then I had the rest of the bag, and I just put that in my bathing suit. And then I had my ticket for the show. The ticket was in my back, just like a surf trunk pocket. That's all it is. That's only pocket. And so he searches the car, and then of course he finds an empty bowl, and he's like, "Okay, now I have the right to search, you guys." And I remember the Malcolm X thing, so I went right up to the cops. There were two of them, and I was like, "Sir, all I have on me, I'm just wearing shorts and swim trunks." And I opened up my pocket and showed him my ticket. It's all I got on me. And he's like, "You're clean, you're good." And yeah, we didn't get busted. And I'm sure they knew we had bought that eighth, and they were gonna find it, right? They were convinced. And one of the things that cracked me up about it, though, and I always talk about to this day, is as they walked away, one of them turned to us and said, "Yeah, peace and love and all that shit." And it was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, really? You know what I mean? Like, if you could tie them up in a chair right now and be like, explain peace and love, shit. How? So you don't like peace in your life? You don't love your family? What are you saying? And it just, and this was, before politics were different, obviously then, but I do wonder like where those guys ended up and all those things. And it's just, it's an amazing outlook, right, on the world. Like to look down at the notion of peace and love, right? Like you got to
that and being there to like enjoy that with a bunch of other people and
like how cynical, right?
Right. And like to be the opposite of kind of like what your job is. Like we don't want it. Like would you hate us more if we were like vandalized? Like what's the alternative to that, man?
Well, actually, now that you mention it, it's such a great point, because they were probably there 2 years or 4 years later when that horrible gate crash occurred. And they didn't experience peaceful deadheads, right? I mean, I know the deadheads were just trying to see the show, but it looked pretty gnarly, right? I mean, storming up the hill and going through the fence or whatever and all that. So maybe karma was like, maybe those peaceful heads aren't so bad. Get back to that. Yeah, so
in 94, I guess in 94 when they played Tempe, Arizona, December in 94. We're down there after the show. We have bong, we have mushrooms, we got everything in the car. Get pulled over because we're driving a Bronco and the guy's knee knocked the headlights off because it used to have that pull-on knob that you pull out. Cop pulls us over and we're going down. There's no two ways about it. A limo pulls up behind the cop, right? The limo driver gets out, comes over, talks to the cop. The cop comes up and says, "Are any of you sober enough to drive?" And the girl with us was like, "I am." He's like, "It's your lucky day. Get out of here. I have to deal with this." Apparently there was like a stabbing or I don't know what happened in the back of the limo. There was some weird thing he had to deal with and he just left.
Oh my God. Wow. Dude, I'm so glad.
Again, we're never driving with anything again.
Yeah. And it's so scary, like that. Like it really, I don't think heads today appreciate how scary it was.
Completely. And you just said, you had an 8th and now I can walk down literally 2 blocks and buy an 8th at the store, So like it's changed. And who would have ever thought, right? Like I remember going to every Dead show ever and having the NORML, the normal people there, like sign our petition to legalize weed. You're like, yeah, all right, great. Good luck.
Right.
Good luck
That's never going to happen.
Never going to happen.
Yeah.
Cut to.
And thank God, right? Because I mean, a lot of the modern world is not easy, and it really, like COVID with weed was a hell of a lot easier with legal weed. I mean, every time the legal weed, we got it delivered here, and I would tip them well, and they'd be like, "Oh, thank you so much for being so gracious." I'm like, you are our favorite human being. Like you are keeping. Yeah, I mean, you're keeping everybody sane right now, and yeah, and it is funny because you're right. You could come back from a. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna try to bring it back around to the Grateful Guitar thing a little, and the fact that you guys partner with different music festivals and things like that, and there happens to be one coming up. Are you going up to the June Lake Jam Fest yourself?
Sadly, I'm not. Unfortunately, it always has conflicted with our family reunion we do every year. But we're big supporters because we know what they do, and we know a lot of the players. Like we're big. Nate LaPointe is my guitar teacher, and for those that don't know, Nate LaPointe is the leader of Cubensis, and he's an unbelievably skilled player. He played with Bobby Womack, and is just an unbelievable musician. He's learning the violin right now. I mean, like. A fretless instrument. I mean, he is an unbelievable talent. And I wish I was going because I love Nate and Alex Jordan and Bella Rain, who we're connected to, and she's an incredible young talent. But also, too, thank you for bringing it up because they support music education, and that is a big part of what we do at Grateful Guitars. And one way to frame it that someone on our board mentioned that I find it's super helpful to look at it this way, which is past, present, future. And so past, a bunch of us steward, gear from the past, whether it's a Bobby guitar or Jerry guitar, or I've got like Jerry's 4x12 from the 80s and the early 90s, and that's been on stage, and some amplifiers, some Brent Midland keyboards. So in the nod to the past is we honor the ethos, like a lot of what we've been talking about on the high core values, essentially, right? Integrity, service, inclusivity, kindness, the golden rule, right? So we honor the past, we use their ethos, we honor their gear, we honor their drive for getting it just exactly perfect, right? So when Leo Elliott makes a beautiful new instrument, that's the ethos we want. We want the player to be able to communicate musically what they want. What comes from their heart goes right through their hands, right through their rig, right to us fans' ears. So that's how we honor the past, is we're honoring all that. And then in the present, we're gifting these instruments, right, that are often world-class instruments, but not always. I mean, sometimes we just help out a player with fixing their guitar that needs some work. Or when Bella Rain's guitar was stolen, we stepped in. Jack Barton, who helps run Grateful Guitars and our production work. I was actually at our family reunion, which is like a place where there's no cell, and he knew I would agree, and he's like, Bella, we got you. And we got her a new gold top, which is not a $30,000 guitar. And so everything we do is not, crazy high end, insane. but it would be anything someone needs. If it's a singer in a band and they need a new microphone, we will help them get a new microphone. If it's a keyboardist, we'll help them buy keys. So it isn't, even though it's called Grateful Guitars, it is any instrument, it's any piece of gear that we will give to help a player. And we have said the jam band scene, but that's really a starting point. If someone says, hey, there's a shredder out of Chicago who is SG, has a broken headstock, and they really need help, please reach out to Grateful Guitars, because we want to help, and that's what we want to do. We want these amazing talents to have the tools that they need, and I learned that from loaning the gear starting back in 2013, when I would see what I didn't see as a fan, which is how hard these players work. They rehearse sometimes for days and hours on end before any given show. They then load in, oftentimes around 3 p.m., all their gear, their rigs, and then they have a sound check, and they're usually sweaty by the time they're done with all that. And then they change their shirt into a show shirt, and then they do 3 hours of that and blow us all away. And then when we're all on our way home, they're tearing it all down, and they're going to go have a late night pasta meal, which isn't great for your health, in the middle of the night, and then do it again the next day. And often with, like I said, an SG with a broken headstock like Garrett DeLoening had. And so we want to help these people get the tools that they need and they deserve. And just because they're on stage, doesn't mean they're making the money you think they're making. It really is pretty surprising what they actually are earning. Yeah, and they also... Right, and they also aren't going to make enough money to buy the type of guitar that we as fans would wish they would have, so that they can fucking rock as hard as we wish they would rock. And so we all as fans want them to have the best kick-ass sounding guitar and tool they can, so that's where we come in, as we gift those instruments. But then to make sure that we're also tending to the future, we need to make sure it isn't all EDM. No offense to EDM, but it can't all be EDM. We need musicians. We need young people to be exposed to live music and to have guitar teachers and violin teachers and sax teachers or whatever it is to come into schools to inspire and get people excited to pick up an instrument and have that door open. And we talk about it a lot as artistic people, all of us, that without physical education and without the arts, I would not be on this. Normal school, sitting there, and I'm sure I had learning differences. It would have, French and math were my enemies. I suffered through those courses, absolutely was brutalized. And I had the outlet of sports and arts that were just so helpful. And I serve on a board called Fit Kids, and we bring sports programs to underserved youths. And it's wonderful because they've canceled a lot of PE out of school. It's crazy, right? PE, taking that out of the budget and just letting poor kids just get, cranky and all keyed up and have no outlet. It's just fucking horrible. Right. And when these are supposed to be, we're investing in our future. Every young person is an investment in the future of all of our countries. So it's insane to do it that way. But one of the things that always bummed me out and I've been on Fit Kids for about 8 or 9 years, that we didn't do the arts. Like, we do the sports, which I was glad, but man, I wish we could do the arts. So I was so thrilled when my work partner, Jack, came up with the idea that we should be seeding music education, so that we have, not only do we want to have new players, but let's really do something about it. And so now we're giving to these schools. And with June Lake, when you go to June Lake, you buy a ticket, you are helping Mono County educate young people in the arts, which I can't think of a better cause, right? And you get to go to an awesome show with kick-ass bands at an unbelievable setting on the lake. It is like, I don't know. We've all seen really cool settings, right? I was just at Jerry's Middle Finger. They played here at Filoli in Woodside, which was amazing. I was at Dark Star Orchestra at Pier 17 with the Brooklyn Bridge behind them, and really cool setting. But June Lake, yes, yeah, they did it exactly. Yeah, they did a benefit for us, and it was so fun. And we had a pre-VIP reception, and Dark Star has become family. We've gifted guitars to all of their players, and I've personally done something for Rob Baracco. So, and if Lisa needs a mic or a new harp, let me know. We'll be there. But the other thing too, I want to say about the music education that people might not appreciate. We give to organizations that run lean, and Grateful Guitars runs really lean. Like I said, we have a production company. We have that Grateful CD. That was one CD we do. We back Alex Jordan. We're working with Jerry's Middle Finger. We work with other bands. Ben Arnold, this other band called the Gas Pops, really cool. You should check out. Anyway, music education isn't just oh, you're a future John Mayer, right? Like I was saying before, it might be just an avenue of another way of learning, another way that's not math, that's not a foreign language or English or some other subject. And so, like as an example, in February, we were at the Fox Theater in Oakland, and we gifted Rob Eaton's new Rich Hogue, amazing Rich Hogue, who builds for Weir, Blue Knife, the stunning blue black knife guitar, semi-hollow body, just an incredible instrument. And Rob was such a champ that night. He played it sight unseen. He's like, I don't want to even see it until I open it that night. And he did it. I mean, who else does that? I mean, he was so brave. He took it out of the case and he played the whole show on that guitar. And that, I mean, as a player, like I said, it's their job. I mean, what if it wasn't comfortable? What if there was something not right or whatever? But he just knocked it out of the park. But what was so cool was Elevate Oakland was our partner that night on the nonprofit side. And so when we gift a guitar, we always give a $5,000 gift to the community that we're there to gift a guitar to. And as Jack says, we leave something behind, right? So we've gifted a guitar to this player who's visiting your city, but we're going to leave something behind. And in that case, it was with Elevate Oakland. And this is an organization that also runs really lean. It was founded by Sheila E. and the founder of Yoshi's. And the person who was there that day, who was accepted the check, Jack was talking to her, and she shared that she was a student of their organization. And she really wanted to be something. She liked the idea of music and music ed and heard about this Elevate Oakland program. And the only rule with Elevate Oakland is you got to go to school. You don't have to get there's no grade point average. You just have to go to school. And her and many people who were there, who were young people, who were telling me that they learned because they really wanted to be a part of the Elevate Oakland program and have access to an instrument and get to play music, that they weren't stupid, that they were actually smart, that they could do school. And so a bunch of them went to college or they had other careers. And that, to me, what is that worth? Point to a dollar figure. It's not, you can't, right? And one human being who could become the person who cures cancer, who is the next president, whatever it is. But it was so freaking cool, and I wish everyone could have been in my mind and seeing what I was seeing, because here these young people were they were brought to the venue, and and Dark Star was amazing, and they had them at sound check and load in. And the monitor guys had them listening to the board, and they got to see the lighting guy and how all that works, Dave Quinn, and it was and all those guys were like, man, it was so cool today. We got to show all these young kids this, and they were all turned on. And I know, because I live here in this area, the Valley is super STEM focused. Basically, if you're not like a math whiz, you feel like you're an idiot. And it's really a shame, because it's really also a bastion of the arts, and the Grateful Dead came from here. It's so ironic. But anyway, what was so neat was that all of these young people were seeing another way you could do a career, totally different. No cubicle, no fluorescent lights, like totally artistic thing, totally different. And so anyway, that part of it, funding the future, is a really exciting piece, and it really is motivating for all of us, because you were saying before about is the music business like lots of crazy people going from psychotherapy to the music business. Yeah, there are a lot of crazy people in the music industry. Oh my God, it's a really challenging business. I mean, truly, there are a lot of kind-hearted, amazing humans, and there's a lot of vipers, and it's pretty freaking, and you never know which is under which rock. And so it's a lot of trial and error and trying to kind of figure out who gets it, who gets the ethos that you want to keep going. And it's challenging, in that regard. But what always gets us motivated, and I don't take a salary, all the stuff we do, much of it is funded through Andy Logan Productions to help Grateful Guitars. because we want it to be as lean as possible. We want someone gives $1 to Grateful Guitars, and as much of it as possible goes to buying someone an instrument or funding music education. And yes, we do have, we have to file taxes, and we have, insurance, and there's a few, but it's pretty small administratively, the cost, to do that kind of stuff, especially because so many of us are just volunteering. And like I said, the vendors and the people that are working for me are working for our production company, and we all share the ethos of wanting this to continue. We're all deadheads. We all love it, we all know that it's built to last. So, yeah, it's a joy to be a part of, even though it can be a labor of love for sure.
I feel like it goes very well, though. It dovetails very well with your whole philosophy and your whole feeling of you just letting people play these guitars and getting it out there. Like it just kind of all goes together. Like it's a very cool, unique.
Well, we were shown the way. I mean, I was 18. Like I said, I was 16 when I was first getting into it. 17 really was listening to bootlegs and into it. And then I went to Worcester 87, got shut out. My mom said I was too young to go to Buffalo 86. She wouldn't let me go. I did look, in her defense, I did look 10. Anyway, when I did start going, I was right on the bus and took acid at my second show on April 9th, 88, and I stewarded the guitar that Bobby played that night, which is just always blows my mind to even be able to touch it or whatever. But they did it differently, right? We don't have to do shit the way everyone told us to do stuff, right? I mean, I'm sitting on a chair or whatever because this is what everyone says a chair is. We need to, as human beings, we need to capture some of that Jerry vibe, that ethos of questioning why should a chair look like a chair just because someone said that's what a chair looks like. Let's stop just doing what was always done before, because look at where we are today as a society. It's pretty fucked up, right? Yeah. So we need to start doing stuff really, really differently, and that's a huge reason my wife Becky and I back Grateful Guitars and back all this, because we both believe that the Grateful Dead ethos is the future of humanity. We've got to grab onto it. We've got to look at the world as a different place. We've got to, live by the golden rule. I don't care what religion you are. The idea that we want to leave this place a better place than we found it. And we don't want to stomp on people just because they don't agree with things that we think, right? These ideas are real and they're important. And like you were talking about and we were talking about before, for sure, not everything is held that way. There are VIP sections, there are things that bother people, and I don't agree with the notion of it all should be free. Sorry, but go watch Festival Express if you have any issue with that. I mean, Bobby makes the point very clear. We've got the Grateful Dead, we've got Janice, we've got the band, we've got, Buddy Guy, Shauna. I mean, like, what the hell's wrong with you? It can't be free. We're bringing this. And I think the tickets were like $3, right? I mean, come on, right? I do appreciate that sometimes the prices are exorbitant, and for sure this country has a runaway greed problem. There's no doubt. There's truth there for sure. But every artist needs to get paid, and every poster artist and every merch, seller and all the people that are a part of all this deserve to be paid for their craft. It should not be for free just because it's art. It's people are working real hard at this stuff, and just because they love it doesn't mean they shouldn't get paid for it. And I know many people. I worked in high tech. I worked at NVIDIA. I saw a lot of people making a lot of money who they were skilled, but I'm sorry, they were not practicing their craft of spreadsheets at age 6, while they were learning the instrument that they now are kicking ass on stage, and I get the feeling many times from a lot of club owners or cynical people in this world, in the music world, that the feeling is they love it so much they'll do it for free. We can pay them 10 cents a song, it's good enough, and fuck that, that's wrong. They should be getting paid as much or more than the Google programmer. I know we're on a Google device or whatever we're on, but I'm sorry, it's insane. There is value in tech, and I have full respect for every time I fly on a plane. I can't build a plane. I can't build a bridge. I have massive respect for for all of them, but just give us the respect too. Give the artist the same respect. You can't do that stuff that we do, you know.
Well, it's the middleman. It's the CEOs and it's the middleman who are skimming 20-30% off the top that should be going to the artist.
You're right, Kevin. It is and the lawyers in the middle of that speak the private language that only they speak, and we all need to use them. And we have a lawyer, and I love lawyers. Truly, I do, because lawyers are some of the most frank people. Like if you have friends who are lawyers, they will really tell you if they didn't like that show or that set. And I dig that. I would like to have a conversation that's real. I really do not enjoy bullshit. It's just, life is too short. We don't need it. You know, it doesn't help us. It doesn't move the ball down the field. So I know, you know, I just did bash lawyers, but I think it's the profession. It's not all lawyers, you know, and they should be challenging the rules too, because it's too often getting used to do harm. Oh no, there's precedent back then, so we can now use that old precedent to harm over here. No. That was a bad idea in 1850, and it's a bad idea now, and so we're not going to.
The worst idea now, right?
Right, exactly. So, you know, but again, you know, we have to fight for a new way, and I really believe that the dead taught us that. We are all products of that, and we need to keep it going for the fun and your lovely show and what we do with guitars and all the enjoyment we get of being at shows doing it. But then we have to also extend it out everywhere. We have to be kind in every parking lot that we go to, right? And it can change, because a smile to the check stand person at the grocer passes that on to the next customer, and so on, just like the cranky vibe of the customer does it back the other direction. And it really does make a difference, and I really believe we can do that all together. And so anyway, that's a huge reason of the why we do it.
Where am I going? Where am I going if I'm trying to support Grateful Guitars?
So we have a website, gratefulguitars.org. So that's the easiest place to go. If you want to come to support events that we're involved with, like June Lake, or if you want to come to Halloween, we have a really cool show cooking. That we're redoing a famous Bay Area Halloween show. We've got members of Dark Star coming for that. Alex Jordan, it's the Grateful Thursdays that we do every month at Club Fox, but this is the big show in the big room at the Fox Theater. And Alex, who's an incredible talent, will be on the keys this time instead of guitar. And we've got Jeff and Rob and Skip as the front people from that band, and Jerry Saracini on drums, and another to-be-announced drummer as well as a part of that. So that'll be a great place to come in costume, make it fun. And we'll have a lot of our gear there too, as far as looking back to the past. Like, so we'll have all the old amps. Jerry's 4x12 will be there. Come check out all that fun stuff. And anytime, that we're involved, if we have a table, come say hi. You know, we definitely need all the help we can. Yes, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I bought Alligator. We have money, but we can only do so much. And so if you want to help this be a bigger thing, you know, donate. And it doesn't matter how much. If every deadhead gave $1, we could give that many more guitars to that many more of the bands that people want to see us get guitars
Buy
to.
Tiger from the Ursay family.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I don't think that'll happen, but it would be amazing. But for sure, like, you know, we've given a lot of guitars to regional bands. I'm thinking like Lon Kalanka, you know, working in Santa Fe. Like, there are a lot of smaller bands and smaller markets that we could help, and we want to help, and we don't want it to be just the Jerry, because we all love Jer. You know, Bobby's, you know, that role is even harder, as from what I've noted when I'm trying to play. Like, dang, like, what's that chord? And then you got to trill it, and like, wow. I mean, it's amazing. So the Bobbies need guitars, the bass players need basses, you know, drummers need drums and mics and harps and, you know, B3s, whatever it is. So the more we have, the more we can do that with, and the more we can help turn the tide here. If we all work together, you know, and work for service, we will make a better world, because we are the power. It is we, the people, right? We are the power here. And we forget that a lot, right? When we get so, I forget. I have to remind myself.
It's overwhelming. It can be very overwhelming when you look out the front door at the whole world out there.
Absolutely. And all the cynicism and the backhanded dealings. But, you know, history has shown love wins in the end. You know, the most horrible regimes. You know, go look up how Mussolini died. It was fucking horrible. And if you are someone out there practicing shit that's against the people, I truly hope you're clocking that. That's not the side you want to be on. You want to be on the side with humanity and the side that's going to be the greatest good. So, my hope is that we all can take this wonderful thing that has the three of us here. We could talk all night, right? I mean, it's just amazing. It's so fun, and we love it. And there's so much we haven't even talked about. So I hope we can do it again. But
I was gonna say, Kev, we could almost split this into two separate shows of an hour each, and we need you to come back to do a part 2 as it is anyway, because this has just been so much fun. Like I feel like I could talk for another hour.
Maybe
thanks, man, and me too.
Come on, we do a Wednesday night live show. Maybe one Wednesday we get you to come on Live. We call the show Live because it's live. And basically
because we're idiots, but
I love it.
It's more like an around the horn. Like we had Matt Bush on last week, and we went through and talked about a bunch of different topics, Spotify, and things like that.
It's less of an interview.
I would love that, and we
out. So
I will bring my dab rig, and I will bring a guitar, and we can look at gear and have a fun time.
Do it. Yes. Yes. Three, correct? That's
yes. Yes.
I think that is fast. So that's
really, it's so fun. Like I
Stephen?
Say it again.
Is there a St. Stephen that night?
I should know. I don't recall the set list off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But there were 3 Stevens in '83. They did it 3 times in '83.
Could be the last one.
Halloween was one of them.
Yeah, my brother went to one of them, and that was the East Coast one. I think you're right. I think it might be the last one was played that night. But I was going to say that one of them that I'm really connected to as a burgeoning deadhead was 7/13/84 with the Scarlet Touch Fire, and last summer with Dark Star we got to be a part of their recreation of 7/13/84, and one of the guitars I bought in the Bobby auction was the Koa Black Knife that he played during a bunch of end of '83, but a bunch of '84, including 7/13/84, and Eaton played that guitar, and he's actually going to play it again at this Halloween show because he was like, I think I'd like to play that Koa one again. I'm like, yeah, I mean, why not?
This is a pretty great set list. Wang Dang Doodle, My Brother Esau, Peggy O, Little Red Rooster, Brown Eyed Women, Lost Sailor, State of Circumstance, Deal, Help Slip Frank, Estimated Eyes, Drum Space, Steven. So there is a Steven, Throwing Stones, Not Fade Away, and Revolution.
Yeah.
That is a hell of a show. That is going to be
Revolution,
great
They
show.
bring out the Revolution. That sounds all janky and it's falling apart.
But who cares?
But who cares? They broke it out, right? You're like, oh my god, they're playing
so exciting. And that's the other thing that's funny too. That sometimes these recreations, right? I mean, they'll do a better job,
right?
Exactly. than the bootleg was, right? Because they're crazy talented or whatever. You're like, wow. But the Lost
I'm sure the
Sailor,
Steven will be better. Right, those 3 Stevens in '83 were all a little bit like, you could see the rust on it, and you could see Jerry was just not comfortable with the weird voice changes and the time changes.
But Kev, it's got the Estimated Eyes, which we always say is like one of the best.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that's my favorite pairing.
And it's got the Help Slip Frank in front of that.
I love those fast Estimated Eyes, early '80s. Like to me, like '82. I mean, I would love all the '80s. There's not a bad year to me, but '82. Wow, it's one of my favorites, and just all those vibes.
The cocaine years.
Yeah.
The sped up eyes. I always like the sped up eyes a little bit. When it gets a little bit, like
LSD, the Lost Sailor deal, right? I mean, I got to see Saint of Circumstance. Thank God they brought that back, but I never got to see Sailor until for me later when was playing it, in the follow-on things. But I can't imagine what it was like to see Lost Sailor deal, back then at a show. I mean, oh my God. Must have been amazing. And I just love the Bobby raps, right? The drifting and dreaming parts, the way where he goes, always somewhere unique and interesting. And sometimes he'll drop an F-bomb, which was fuck it, whatever. I love that. It's so good. But yeah, the reason the Steven will be great too is because, and I always try to remind this, to the bands nowadays, they played St. Stephen 20 times in that month. That all the players who were going to play it that night were all going to see it at the Fox Theater. Right, unlike you're saying, where the Dead had just come back to it, this is the wild part that the Dead tribute acts need to get way more credit for. They just played 69 show, and then they did a 94. And so they're playing, you know, Samba in the Rain, Foolish Heart, you know, Viola. Now they're doing 83. I mean, these cats have to know everything, you know, right there. So it's quite an amazing feat.
I've talked to Jeff before. I've talked to Jeff Matson before, and I've talked to Rob Baracco before. And I got to interview both of them. Fascinating guys. Rob is just,
Oh, yeah.
I love talking to Rob. He was so
And
emotive.
he has seen, and yeah, I'm sure you went into it because he has seen. I mean, like he saw a gator, like Jerry played gator. Like, I mean, these guys, I mean, they go back, and it's really neat. And then not just, they're all students of music, like we were talking about before. It's not just Grateful Dead. They'll tell you, oh yeah, I saw, you know, I don't know what, like Zeppelin. You're like, what? Like, you know, I mean, live, yeah, you know, like wow.
Or even like the random weird one-offs. They're like, oh yeah, I saw Buddy Guy play this like bar in Chicago one night, and he busted, you know, and you're like just some of those off-the-wall stories that you're like, what, who?
Right,
And he played,
right.
you know, and you're like, wow, yeah.
And
he
you
played,
were
like,
there?
Yeah.
You were at Live Aid, you know, or whatever.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, it is really exciting. So anyway, yeah, I'm glad, and I look forward to a lot more, you guys. I'm totally stoked to come hang with you live. That would be amazing. So just let me know.
Awesome. Hey man, thank you
Fantastic.
so much for finally coming on. Like I said, I've been so excited to talk to you since I met you that night. And I as soon as I came back from that, I was telling these guys, I was like, we have to get him on. Like his stories are fantastic. He totally gets it. And like I want him to tell the world more about like what he does and who he is, because it's just that the foundation is phenomenal. What you believe in and what you do is absolutely wonderful. And
Thanks, T.
for
Thank you.
spending a little time with us. I really appreciate
Hang
it.
hang out for us for a minute after I run the outros, because it's a cloud-based thing, so it takes a few seconds to catch up. But I'm going to run the outro. Thank you. We will be in touch sooner than later, and figure out how to
Thank
get you back
you.
on.
And thanks to everybody
and,
out there too for all your support.
Definitely.
You know, do I have the all
Definitely.
clear, T?
You're good, Kev. Run it.
All right. We'll see you guys soon.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.